Hello friends, this is Jaime again from the MidPointe Library System, and today's art is going to be a little different than a normal paper project. And even if you don't have access to maybe a white mask of some kind, cotton would be the best. But if you have maybe some just loose fabric, that especially if you have a mom that's a crafter or a grandma, or even grandpa, has no boundaries for sure on who would have fabric, but they may have some stuff, if they're quilters, that maybe you would sew into something else. Or even some of the tote bags and stuff that you can buy at Walmart that's blank. You can do this too as well. I would prefer starting with a white item, but you can change it to a different, as long as it was a soft color. This should work still, but for this situation, we'll do white, because as you can see, once you do these Sharpie tie-dyes, it really adds a lot of color. And what I was kind of showing in these two are kind of two different ways to create some. This kind of looks like a more traditional tie-dye. And one thing you can do if you have a larger piece of fabric, this I was attempting to do kind of the tie-dye twist, where I was twisting the inside of the mask and then tried to just color with the markers. But it actually made it pretty hard because this is so small that it really hid a lot of the mask on me. So I actually had to unravel it and then kind of color in my own way just to mix the colors. But there's also another way that I was going to show you to cause colors to mix. You could even figure out other ways maybe to fold it to do something like this. Like, since this naturally wants to fold this way, you might be able to do an accordion fold where you fold it like this and like that, back and forth, just keep flipping it. And then you could probably do the spiral and kind of colorize some spots with the markers. But it's also fun too to just mess with adding splotches of color. And as you can see on this mask, it sort of took over my yellow because blue and red are always super strong colors. So they're really going to react to what we'll end up doing to create the tie-dye. Will be rubbing alcohol to it. So these colors that are really deep and super strong can really take over the mask. So when you do this kind of stuff, you really have to think about how your colors will mix and what you may want your mask to look like. And on this one, you can see how I still use multiple colors, and you can sort of see some shapes happening in there, but a lot of them have sort of disappeared. And so don't be concerned about making sure your shapes so much show up, because I still think it's fun to just not really know what's going to happen. And you can tell that my more flower-like pieces in the green and the blue sort of stayed put. But colors that are probably similar to each other are probably why these bled out more, because the orange and the pink are pretty dominant and sort of swallowed up the yellow, while the green and the blue in here are much stronger than the yellow. So I think it still left a lot of the blue and the green behind. But this is just fun to be able to use. You can use really as many colors as you want or limit yourself, especially if you're wanting a mask that may be more of a certain color to match an outfit. I know it seems sad to say that with all these mask things that we have to wear, but it's something that you can create, and it kind of adds a little more lightheartedness to our situation. So something like this would be great with the kids, but this is a great adult activity as well. So I kind of have some rainbow colors over here. And what I'm going to do is grab some extra paper, because I'm going to fold this, because this mask actually wants to fold like in half easier than to sit flat. And just for me to be able to draw on it, I want it to be pretty flat. And we're using just regular Sharpies. Sharpie has made some fabric markers, but they still say you can use their regular markers on fabric, because let's face it, a lot of people still just draw on their jeans with these. So we're all good. It just over time will fade over many washes, because it isn't made for fabric. But their Rub-A-Dub marker only comes in black, and they have a few other, I forget what the fabric ones are called as well, that are not black, but they are different, the way that they mark, and are different from these. But what's still great about these is I'll let you know what to do at the end to kind of help set it and try to make it last longer for you. So we'll go ahead. I'm grabbing my red, and I want my yellow. I'm going to start with my lighter color, and I'm just going to do some various shapes on my mask. And this is just something you can experiment with. You do not have to follow me exactly. You may not even like the colors I'm using, so feel free to do whatever you want. So I'm just going to come in here with a diamond shape with the yellow marker. And you may notice as you use markers on the fabric, it may start getting a little hard on the tips. And it can be more abrasive because it isn't paper. But you should be able to get still quite a few uses out of your marker before it's hard to lay ink down. And you may notice some of it spreading or kind of bleeding into the mask, and don't even worry about that. You'll notice when I do these designs that how bright it'll be as if I really filled in the space with the ink. But if you want some kind of variation, do just small dots of color, and it'll still react with what's around it. Like I'm just going to surround that diamond with the red ink, because red is pretty powerful. And it doesn't need much encouragement to take over. But I'm going to switch to my bright pink. And then I'm just going to do some circles just around this diamond shape. Not really planning anything, just kind of picking some spots to add more color that will mix together. Once I do that, I'm going to bring the yellow back again and just do some lines, almost like sun rays, in between those pink dots. Because like this one, I really literally just colored in spans or sections of color. And you could always do it in a spiral like some of the more popular tie-dye shirts are done. You could physically draw a spiral and that would work. But with this, I think it's kind of fun because you're doodling or just randomly putting some color down, but you're still being pretty intentional because you know these will end up mixing once we put the rubbing alcohol down. And let's see, let's add more red. So I'm just going to do tiny dots in between those yellow rays. And then I think I'll kind of finish that piece up. Okay, so let's try something else. Let's grab the lighter pink I have. And I'm always a sucker for flower shapes, so once we get that last shape done, then we'll grab the pink, the lighter pink that I have, and just kind of do a circle. And then I always like petal shapes, but it's almost a full circle. Just do 3 of them around that circle. And let's see, let's grab the purple. I love my purple. And then we'll just do circles in between, but much smaller than the center. I'm going to kind of do a dashed line around that center just to introduce other colors is what I'm essentially doing, because I don't want this all to be that light pink. So the more color you keep adding, the more of an effect or a blend you'll get. And if you really go crazy with adding a lot of colors, usually there's going to be one that's pretty dominant that will take over. So you don't really have to get super crazy with it. But I'm going to add some yellow, kind of extra petals within that blank space. And it's okay if I hit that other design. I'm really just filling up some of the space on here. And then, let's see, I think I'll also grab my orange. I might use that, but I'm going to grab the red again and kind of just do a starburst, like you can do an X, and then 4 lines kind of in that space with the red. And then, let's see, what goes well? Let's go ahead and add some of the pink, like my hot pink. I'm just continuing those lines. And let's see, we haven't used any of the blues. I may not even touch the green, because sometimes the green can add some weird tones, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes here. And just think of various shapes too. Like, let's do the circle again. But maybe we'll do almost sun rays all the way around the circle in that light blue. Then take your dark blue. And the dark blue, I find, is always really dominant, so you really don't even need that much of it to cause a drastic change. But I'm just continuing the lines. And let's see, maybe let's grab the light pink again, and I'm going to do another diamond shape. And why I have a piece of paper in between is sometimes it will bleed through the paper or through the fabric, because you'll notice on the other side it'll kind of start showing some of the pattern. I'm using pink, and this time I'm going to grab more red. But I'm just going to do circles around it. Pretty much just repeating shapes that I started with. But doing dots, lines, and like triangles or diamond shapes will at least introduce new colors or other colors into it for the alcohol to react with. Yeah, let's go ahead and grab some yellow, because the more warm colors like the red, orange, yellows will react and blend really well with each other. And of course you can use yellow with the blues and kind of get some green tones without using a green. Kind of doing more lines or kind of sun ray lines around that diamond shape with the yellow. So since I haven't used much blue, let's put some blue up here. And I'm going to repeat some of that flower shape. This time I'm not going to do a center in that one. And then just tiny dots. And it's okay if it kind of covers what you already have existing there. Then it just gives more things to react. And then I'm going to add yellow outside of that blue. And do more circles around it. And really this is where you get to just play with it. You can keep adding more shapes. Of course, you don't want to do too little ink because you won't have as much of a reaction if there's not much ink to react to the alcohol. So add some stuff to the edges as well. I'm doing that starburst kind of effect. Let's see, red and blue can cause kind of a purple when it reacts. So I'm using the lighter blue with the red. And then I'm going to just add some lighter blue on this outer piece, just do some dots. Just to add some additional color. And I always like to try to fill in spaces. In fact, I'll just go ahead and add a little bit of light blue there. Add some more to this top. And it can be sporadic. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not trying to make it exactly look like something. I'm just trying to get some colors down so I can see what it looks like when they are forced to mix. So let's get some purple down. And I'm going to do kind of a dashed diamond shape. You might have trouble seeing that a little bit. Let's see, since it puckers right there at the nose spot. And then do some just dots around the outside. You may feel like I'm moving pretty fast, but I'm just trying to get some color down so I can show you what it looks like. I'm doing a little X inside. Do more lines with the blue. Come back in with the yellow. And let's do a circle again. Let's see. I'm just going to do more of a sunburst again. Especially if you're working on a mask, there's going to be some areas that are going to be a little hard for you, and especially if you have more of the pleated mask, it might be a little more difficult for you to get color down. So you might want to do something like this where you're kind of just coloring sections and changing up your colors. You don't have to do all of these shapes. And I'm going to switch to the blue. And I'm going to do the other side now. Okay. And let's do like a circle that's dashed. And then spread out the sun ray lines. Grab the lighter blue and draw smaller lines that are a little closer. And just do a small speck of blue in the center. And then let's grab the purple and do another line next to the light blue. Again, just adding more color. I'm going to add a couple of purple dots. And then I'm going to add some yellow just to give something else. So it really is doodling on fabric. I mean, you're just adding and adding more and more colors. Let's see. Let's actually grab the red on this side. And I'm just going to do kind of little ovals around, almost a flower with the red. And grabbing the blue, just drawing lines in between. And when you have kind of small spots, but you want color there, just unfold the mask a bit. Kind of look at what colors you haven't used in a little while. Maybe grab that just so you can spread some of the color around. Just going to do a dot there. Kind of add something. I'm grabbing some orange, just introducing a little bit of orange. But this is really most of what you're doing, is covering it in doodles. I'm going to bring back the diamond. You can always repeat patterns when you're starting to dry up with ideas. It unifies it anyway. But you can always change it. Like, we'll still do the red on this one, but maybe we'll do the hot pink outline on that diamond, and then maybe purple on this one, just to change it up. And then grab the light blue, and we'll just do dots. Around that, do some dots. Just continuously building color. And you'll end up completely covering this, but I want to show you what it will look like once we start adding the rubbing alcohol, because the rubbing alcohol is what will force it to spread like this one. And I'm just going to add some more paper layers here to protect my bottom layer. Now this is where definitely use at least 70%. You can, I've heard that 90% really reacts quickly, but there's really no point because 90% tends to be really hard to find. 70% is pretty much everywhere. And you can distribute it either by pouring a little bit in a jar and then using an eyedropper to disperse it. But since my bottle actually has a real pinhole hole in the top of the lid, I'm just going to tip it over and squeeze a little bit on. And you'll notice the more you use, the more it will mix. And as it dries, it's going to look different. Now, I've kept a lot of this design kind of far away, or like some of these colors are not really on top of each other, probably as much as one of my others. But you can always, once it dries, add more ink. You don't have to say, well, that's it. That's all I can do right now. But you can already see it reacting to the Sharpie. And like I said, the dark blue is really dominant, so it tends to kind of take over and really spread. Even the red, you can tell, is kind of starting to mix with the yellow and create that orange tone. And it's fun to see what it's doing on the other side of the mask as well, because depending on how your mask fits, but you could potentially have a reversible mask. Like this one, I think the opposite side looks just as cool as the other side. But you'll want this to dry completely. And if you're satisfied with the way it looks, you want to get your iron as hot as the fabric can handle. So cotton usually is okay with the iron being turned up, like at least on my iron it has like an 8 to 10 feature, I believe, for cotton. And you would want to press it down. Now, if you're worried about ink getting on, it shouldn't, because you're waiting until this completely dries. But if you are fearful of that, just grab another fabric or something like a towel, a thin towel to put over top of it. That you don't care much about whether the ink gets on it. But I haven't ever had the ink get on the iron, so I think you'll be fine. But feel free to be cautious though. Doesn't hurt to be. But so once you iron it, they say you can throw it in the washer and then put it in the dryer at high heat again. But when you're working on cotton fabric, which is natural fibers versus polyester that's man-made, cotton will tend to shrink at high heats when it's wet. So what I do after I've ironed it, I throw it in the dryer at high heat when it's dry. So then it's not going to shrink, but it's going to help set this ink. And unfortunately, as you wash it over and over, it may fade just because it's not made to be on fabric. But it's something that adds like some really cool effects. And you could potentially, as it fades, add more of the Sharpie to it and do the alcohol again. And then do the same process again. When you put it in the dryer after ironing it, I would do at least 15 minutes, but 30 minutes is pretty good to helping set it. And then after that, you can choose to wash it in cold water and I would let it air dry, honestly. Because with these face masks, as often as we're having to wear them, you might as well try to get as many uses out of them as possible. But other than that, I think this is a real cheap way of being able to do tie-dye rather than buying the dye. But if you want to use dyes, feel free, because you can do something like this with a tie-dye kit. But with this, it's something kind of cheap. It still lasts to some extent. Like I said, it'll just fade a little bit over time, but something really fun. And like I said, it can be very unexpected how it mixes, or what it'll look like. Like this pretty much just looks like a blob right now, but it still has some really cool color. so I could always go back in and add more of that color up in here. But I hope you enjoy trying this project out, and thank you for spending time with me. I hope you have a very creative and awesome day, and come visit us at the MidPointe Library System. You can still check out books and do some returns. So thank you so much, and appreciate you being with me, and see you next time. Bye.